Having the right wide receivers on your roster can make or break your teams this season. I've got 3 receivers for you today. We're going to get into their stats, talk about their film, and then whether I'm in or out on these players right now. Starting off with Brandon Aiyuk, wide receiver 29 and 66th overall player on Football Guys consensus ADP. Last year, he was the wide receiver 15 and wide receiver 24 in points per game. He plays predominantly on the outside, but he's a 75-25 split between the outside and the slot for his snaps. He's 23rd in yards per route run last year at 1.91 yards. He finished outside the top 50 in average depth of target at 10.3. 19th in total yak yards with 370, but 29th in yak per reception at 4.7 yards. And then he was tied for 4th among all wide receivers in missed tackles forced with 16. He's coming off the most targets in his season. He averaged about 5.5 targets per game with Purdy, 6.7 yards targets per game with Garoppolo. Let's get into the tape. Let's see what this man's all about, because you guys know he's been one of the incoming wide receivers in fantasy for the last few years, and he's been stated as the breakout player to have this season, and I love watching him on this whip route against A.J. Terrell, one of the better cover corners in the NFL. And what the 49ers are doing here, they're going to motion this man out here. They're going to take away a defender right there. You have this single high safety here, and they want to isolate Brandon Aiyuk. So this receiver on the outside is going to run up the field, okay? He's just going to clear out. And what that does is it creates a huge hole right here, all right? There's not going to be anybody on the field for Brandon Aiyuk to then get into space, and then it's all up to Brandon Aiyuk. Can he get separation? Oh, yes. Yes, he can. He can generate that and put it in to a yak opportunity to score a touchdown. All about how it's drawn up, bringing it to the execution from the wide receiver. Brandon Aiyuk, fantastic route runner. Against the Seattle Seahawks down here at the bottom of your screen, against Tariq Woolen. Watch how he releases off the line of scrimmage. Notice the pure shoulder movement. He's going to move that left shoulder down out of the way of Tariq Woolen's jab, get underneath it, motioning everything outside, creating a big space here and a big play, finishing with some athleticism. So what's this all about? We know the 49ers love to get into these heavy personnels. This is 21 personnel, and they're going to use motion and everything in terms of the running the play. So it's going to be everyone's moving this way, right? Everybody. You have your offensive line's going to shift down this way. Run play action here. It's coming this way, right? So defense is shifting here. Brandon Aiyuk. Nope. I'm going to go the opposite way. And then they do this. This is a beautiful thing that they do. They're going to take Deebo Samuel on there, or excuse me, not Deebo Samuel. It's Juwan Jennings running up the field, and Kittle's going to come underneath here. It's going to draw attention from 2 players on each side, and Brandon Aiyuk is going to just run in between them. Puts 56 in conflict with the running back going the opposite direction while he's cutting across the middle of the field. They call that scraping across the linebackers, and I absolutely love it. The yak ability that Brandon Aiyuk possesses from anywhere on the field means that he can score from anywhere here on the outside of the offense. This is just a fantastic drawn up play with the running back in the slot that brings a linebacker out one-on-one here. So what do the 49ers want to do? They want to isolate Brandon Aiyuk on that linebacker. They're going to have this play action fake here first, and then this slot receiver is going to go and block the cornerback. Brandon Aiyuk's going to run a little bubble screen here. That linebacker that's covering the slot's going to overreact to the play. Brandon Aiyuk comes underneath, just into that space when they get blockers in front, scores a big touchdown. So when I get to watch Brandon Aiyuk, I always have a good time, and I think that he's definitely one of the up-and-coming players. He's a great route runner, he's a great athlete, and he can score from anywhere on the field. So I'm hugely in on Brandon Aiyuk this season, especially at that wide receiver 29 price point on Football Guys ADP. I think he can easily smash that this season and improve those points per game numbers too. That's definitely something to watch. So big in on Brandon Aiyuk. The next player we're going to talk about is DK Metcalf. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 15, the overall player 31 on Football Guys ADP, the consensus board. He finished last year as the wide receiver 14 and wide receiver 22 in points per game. We know he plays predominantly on the outside, a little bit to the inside, but still 80+% of his snaps coming from the outside. He was 27th in yards per route run last year at 1.84. 41st in average depth of target at 12.1 yards, 41st in yards after catch with 231. He was outside the top 50 in yak per reception at 2.6 yards. So you got to pay attention to that. And tied for 35th in missed tackles forced with 6. Let's get into the tape and let's see what these numbers mean when it comes to DK Metcalf. I do like, again, we're starting off a little bit here with him in the slot, so you can actually see some of these things come to fruition, hopefully, with the Seahawks this season. It makes sense trying to get him one-on-one with a smaller corner. That nickel is usually a little bit smaller. But with that motion not signaling enough to the offense, this is a zone coverage. You have that cover 3 look, cover 3 shell. These corner, safety, corner, and like I said, that movement from the backfield doesn't do much anything, and this slot here actually drops underneath the cover as a flat defender, and they just having DK run up the seam essentially. He's going to stem to the outside, and what I mean by that, the initial couple of steps are going to be the outside, and then he's going to kind of level back off right up to the seam here. Geno Smith loves to throw these big game hunter throws. He wants to pin this right on DK Metcalf in the end zone, and we saw last season, his contested catch targets jump to 42 from 26 the previous year, and he came down with 20 of them, so 47.4%. Still, he's not been a guy who brings down a lot of these contested catch targets, and Geno likes to throw them, especially to DK. I'm just not sure that we're going to see him continuously be able to bring some of them down. This is the reason that we're drafting DK, though. This is right here at the bottom of your screen, one-on-one with a safety over the top. This is exactly why we want DK Metcalf, is because he can score points from anywhere, deep shots down the field. This is a fantastic lesson in manipulating a cornerback. So about 10 steps in, he's going to right here look for that ball, all right? So his eyes go backward. He's like, all right, I'm going to look back for the football. I need to see where Geno's going to throw this. First of all, he's manipulating the corner to slow down. Naturally, when a corner turns his head around to look for the football, he is going to slow down and trust that he can keep pace with you with his hand on the body. And then we go downfield. He accelerates through that knowing the ball hasn't been thrown yet, and he's, again, manipulating that corner to slow down so we can accelerate by him. Fantastic job by DK Metcalf. I love what he does down the field. A really big, obviously, big body. He's not the most acceleration-based player. He definitely has more build-up speed, but he knows how to use it and how to manipulate guys in his routes. And it's just a lot of fun to watch. So here he is on the outside in the bottom of the screen against the same player that he just burned for a touchdown. But this was the big thing for DK coming out, right? The being able to separate. Can he separate? Can he create yards after the catch ability? And this is why he really doesn't have that to his game. You see how many steps he's going to add right here? He slows down. There's so much time for that corner to stop and react. And when you don't play based off of acceleration, you don't create a process for the corner to feel like he's going to get beat downfield. And when he's in that hip pocket and he can stay in that hip pocket, it just makes everything so much easier for that corner to be able to break down. So this is, again, it's a curl route. It's not a route over the middle of the field, but they don't use him a lot this way. It's not going to be something he's asked to do a ton of. And that's another problem for me when it comes to DKs, because I think that he's somebody who is going to generate a lot of these downfield targets. You know, he had a 12.1 yards averaged at the target, which is pretty good, but he's not going to generate a ton of yak, and those can turn into big plays for a player. You don't have to always count on him getting the deep ball. With the additions of, Zach Charbonnet and Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think the offense is going to be a bit more balanced, and some of those targets that you see over the middle of the field are going to go to Jackson Smith and Jigba, where he can turn some of that into yak, maybe take that away from DK. So we're looking at a wide receiver 15 right now being drafted overall. I can't get there with him, so I'm out. I think you're drafting him at his ceiling, and I don't see much top 10 ability right now. He could prove me wrong. He definitely could, because he's done it before with scoring 12 touchdowns. I just don't think it's going to happen this season. Rounding out the topic of conversation today is Christian Kirk. He's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 31, overall player 70 on Football Guys consensus ADP, 29th last year in yards per route run at 1.79, 76th in average depth of target at 9.7, 18th in yards after the catch, 387, and 34th in yards after the catch per reception at 4.6. And then rounding it out, 26th in the missed tackles forced with 7. So let's see what they do with Christian Kirk and why he got that big contract that everybody made fun of last year. And that's what Doug Peterson is counting on. Make fun of him and then utilize him in the best way possible. This is just a fantastic scheme job by the Jacksonville Jaguars and Doug Peterson, but that's what this is all about. That's what getting Christian Kirk was for scheming him up. It's called, this play action crossers, right? These two players here, Zay Jones on the left, Christian Kirk on the right, is going to undercut this a little bit. What they're doing is they're having Jones is going to run to this safety. He's just going to run to him. The play action fake off of it sells the defense up a little bit here, especially with an aggressive defense, and it opens up the middle of the field. So there's no running into anybody. Kirk does a great job here. The inside released on a corner that's got outside leverage, gives him a hesitation step, plants his right foot in the dirt. You can see it right here. Plants that right foot, boom, he's gone. Big touchdown down the field, and I love watching this Jacksonville Jaguars offense because they do stuff like this all the time, utilizing Christian Kirk in multiple different ways. The red zone being one that I didn't expect to see on the resume for Christian Kirk this season. He was 16th in red zone targets. Only 2 slot receivers were guys who play predominantly out of the slot were inside the top 16, him and CeeDee Lamb, and he was able to turn in 7 red zone touchdowns. That is huge. And right here, you see the Chiefs coming out. And we know Steve Spagnuolo loves to blitz. And what is Christian Kirk really good at? Speed release to the outside. Make it very easy for the quarterback to see what's going to happen, where you're going, and get the ball out quickly against the blitz. That's what it is. Win to the inside, score a touchdown. I think that can continue to happen in Jacksonville this season, and you're going to see a lot of this continued usage for Christian Kirk scoring touchdowns. So he scored 8 touchdowns last year. I think that's still doable for him, and that's why you're going to see him possibly up there with that same type of points per game finish because he's done a good job. He's going to continue to do a good job of scoring touchdowns in this offense that really likes to throw the football. And then we get back to the scheme. It's so much fun to watch them do their thing. Nice little switch release here from the wide receivers schemed up against that single high safety down the field. Fantastic fingertip grab by Christian Kirk. He's just going to do a nice little job of, again, being hesitant here, letting Marvin Jones work his slant route here, and then boom. I love this type of feel for the game, this type of creativity with the offense. They did this multiple times against the Dallas Cowboys defense in the second half of that football game when they were coming back, and just a really good feel for tracking that football down the field. I'm a big fan of this offense and what they can do. So I know people are worried about Calvin Ridley coming in and throwing this whole thing off, and I understand that. But with Marvin Jones gone, I think Zay Jones takes a little bit of a step back. Even if he's on the field a little bit more, I believe that Christian Kirk's going to get the second amount of targets, still over 100 targets on the season for him. And when you're talking about a guy who's currently wide receiver 31, who finished as wide receiver 12 and 19 in points per game, I think he can continue to do that and score a lot of touchdowns. That red zone usage is huge. So I'm a big and a believer in Christian Kirk this season. He can incredibly outperform that type of ADP. He is definitely a big target for me as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, get a little bit of information on these receivers, how you should treat them, target them, not target them. You guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.